The great thing about doing a video podcast like this one is to be able to show you the people who are talking. Claire Pearen is today's guest, and through this interview, I hope you see what I see. A woman who is an activist, a counter protester, a water warrior, a woman who leads with her heart, and she shows love for everyone. Through her words and through her actions, she's making meaningful change for not only our rainbow community, but for society as a whole. She's the reason why I wanted to do this podcast. I can't wait for you to meet her or to be reintroduced to her. Today on Tales of the LGBTQ, let's talk to Claire Pearen. My name is Douglas Parsons, and let's start the show. Welcome everyone to Tales of the LGBTQ+. My name is Douglas Parsons, and I'm joined here today by the fantastic Claire Pearen. How are you doing, Claire?
I am great. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So let me see if I have you pegged. You are a one-woman counter-protester to the street preachers on White Avenue in Edmonton, and you do this all the while dancing either in your rainbow dress or onesie. You are a woman involved in the creation of Water Warriors YEG, which feeds and clothes the homeless. You are an active participant in Black Lives Matter rallies throughout Alberta. You are a woman who was asked by Metallica to join them in Vancouver as a roadie. You drove and took care of countless musical stars. You're the creator of the most addictive snack food on the planet. You're the mother of cats and Dalmatians. I know I spent a couple hours this morning staring at a spot on the wall. Where do you get your energy?
First off, you are too kind. I do not deserve that wonderful introduction. Thank you. I just finished hopefully my last back surgery of life last January. And as someone that has chronic pain, you don't take for granted any moments of feeling good and wanting to get out there and doing good things. So every moment that I'm not in pain is a blessing. So I don't know if that answered your question.
It works. It works. Well, and the thing is, I wanted to do a podcast like this, Tales of the LGBTQ+, like this one, because I miss hearing people's stories. For many of us, our lives have been on hold for the past year, and we're waiting to write our own life stories whenever this pandemic goes away. But you, on the other hand, you're out there day after day, and you seem to be writing new entries in your life story. I've known you for a while from afar and meeting up here and there, and you've always been great. But it seems like you've really blossomed in the last 12 months. What have you learned about yourself this past year?
That is a really great question. You are 100% right. I have done a lot of growing in the last year, and I think the most important thing that I've realized about myself is that I need to follow my heart. And if there's something that I believe is wrong or needs to be stood up for, or you can't wait, and if you don't get involved, someone might not get involved, and I think it's really important that we put our best foot forward every day, especially when it comes to matters that are important to us.
Yeah, absolutely. 80s and 90s when the AIDS crisis was going on, the group ACT UP was formed, and theirs was silence equals death. And you have to speak up, and because if you don't speak up, who will? And so really see, especially in you finding your voice and finding that confidence and being a witness in history that's taking place. So we're going to talk about BLM, and we're going to talk about some of those other things I mentioned about you. But something that you and I have in common is that we grew up in small town Alberta. I grew up in a village of 172 people called Botha, as well as the town of Stettler. So a little bit of the farming community. Um, was your entire childhood spent in small town Alberta?
Yeah, it was spent in majority of small towns in Alberta. I spent a lot of time in Lacombe, in Olds as well, Sherwood Park. Growing up in these, moving from small town to small town, and having white parents, and they adopted myself and my Black brother, and coming into these small towns, and sometimes we were the first racialized people that a lot of these folks have seen. And as an adult now, I've realized, James, my brother was kind of like the token Black guy in the town a lot. Like a lot of people hadn't even had experience with racialized folks before. So lots of new experiences, and things that a lot of other kids might not have experienced growing up.
Yeah, absolutely. Where I grew up, the people of color ran the Chinese food restaurants, but otherwise everybody else looked like myself. And so when it came time to university, I realized that for the first time in my life that there was something up, that not everybody looked like me. Was there a time in your childhood when you realized that there was something different, that there was something going on, that you were maybe different from the surroundings?
Yeah, definitely. I remember as a kid seeing my mom's friends, and being attracted to them and thinking, wow, like I'm confused about these feelings, and these women are attractive to me and I don't know why. And you know, I didn't realize that. I think a lot of us didn't realize even 20 years ago there was gay and lesbian.
Yep.
There wasn't really anything. That's all we knew. That's all that the community had developed. So as of then, and it's so great to be living in 2021, and folks are being able to truly live authentically and happily, and that is just so important. I think that is just uh, 2021 is bringing a lot of awareness.
Yeah.
A lot of things are being talked about that I think a lot of people were scared to talk about, or perhaps we didn't have the knowledge on, like mental health, for instance. That is something I was just saying the other day. When I was a kid, if someone said they were suicidal, 10, 15 years ago, they wanted attention. They didn't want help. That was the thought. That was the process. That's what we had assumed about that person. So we're in a different age now, and I'm very glad that things are being talked about finally.
Yeah, and I agree with you with the entire lesbian, gay, even the part of our rainbow with the bisexuality. It was always talked as, oh, it was a person who wasn't fully willing to come out completely. It was kind of a safe area where they can dabble between the straight and gay world, but not fully present themselves. And of course that's changed now. And the other part as well, what I really find cool about today is that the language is still being created. We have this large community, And we don't necessarily know exactly what these words are going to be yet, because they are being developed and they're still finding out what are the positives and what are the negatives between the words. And I bring, I think you would likely know the words like sexual preference was huge for a long time. But now we know today that that's not a good term, because sexual orientation is better. Sexual preference shows that you could change if you need to be, and so you can be converted. And I'm excited about today because of the possibilities. You mentioned, gay, lesbian, being attracted to your wife, your mother's friends at that time. Where do you see yourself now in this journey that you're on?
That's also a good question. I felt a lot of pressure when I moved to Edmonton and I came out of the closet because that's what I thought that I was doing. I didn't realize that you could love everybody. I didn't realize that there was a term for that. And as corny as it sounds, I'm 100% hearts not parts. If there's a term, it's pansexual for me, because I'm attracted to the person that you are and what you have to offer as a human being, and to me that's attractive.
Yeah. Do you find, by saying that you're pansexual, do you find that you're getting pushback from people in the community, or do you find people are embracing of that?
I mean, it's hard to say. Like, I think a lot of the world is still learning about these terms. And, if telling a straight friend that I'm pansexual, there's probably going to be questions. And it's good that people are asking these questions. Like something I learned about pronouns
Mhm.
is saying my pronouns are she, her, rather than asking someone what their pronouns are. It gives an open invitation to let them know these are my pronouns, and this is an invitation if you would like to tell me yours. I think by normalizing, she, her, he, him, they, them, um, he, them, however people are identifying, I think it's important that that's acknowledged as well.
Yeah. So for yourself right now, she, her, the pronouns for you,
Yes, yes.
and I'm he, him, his as well. For as a woman of color, or at that time, a young girl of color, was there a specific time or age when you realized that, hey, mom and dad don't look like me, and what's going on here? Was there a specific time with that?
Well, like my brother is much darker skinned than me, and I would make jokes as a kid saying, this is my twin brother. And, I think I realized quite young, that even if they weren't honest with us, that at some point I would have had questions.
And what did your now? I'm doing research for this or stalking. I realized that your mom is your adopted mom has been a huge supporter of yours, and she posts a lot, and just she might be even more fierce than you could be at sometimes. Uh, what did what did she say or your dad say when it came to you embracing your culture and your background?
I think that my parents have always been extremely open in trying to educate us and teach us about where we have come from. And my mom and dad lived in Barbados and taught there, and that's how they brought my brother back from St. Vincent. And um, I I'm sorry, I lost track. What was the question?
Oh, good. No, is there a time when you realized, when your mom or dad had to sit down and just say, hey, you may notice now that, that culturally you look different than us. And what did they teach you about your birth culture and your heritage and your background? What did they ensure within that with you?
I think like they let me know from an early age if there was anything I ever wanted to know, if there was anything I ever wanted to learn, they would be willing to help me. They would be willing to teach me, to offer me the resources. Um, and I think that was really helpful with opening the doors of, you know, learning about my Trinidadian heritage, and that wasn't something I really dove into until I was an adult. But as someone that identifies as, I guess, biracial, I've never been like accepted as a white person, but I've never been accepted as a black person. And and finding that balance and really truly embracing the fact that I am Trinidadian, and just because I am part Trinidadian doesn't mean I'm not Trinidadian, and I'm fully embracing that now, and that's, I think that's making a difference too.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I think that's where this last year, you just see this blossoming in you because you see that acceptance of your biracial side, and then your now acceptance of your pansexual side, where it's kind of that other or that in between. And rather than pushing yourself to the margins on the side, you're now starting to take this and just pushing this together and making yourself seen. And so again, I'm proud of you. Um,
Thank
you've been highly active this past year with Black Lives Matter rallies, especially in small town Alberta. You've gone into these small towns to make sure your presence is known, and you're witnessing and making sure that people know. Why was this important to you to ensure that you're doing this?
Growing up in small towns, I experienced firsthand a lot of racism, and so did my brother. Getting called every name in the book, and getting questions about my looks and my exoticness, and as an adult now, learning that that's not the most it's not a term that is appropriate to use. um, and I felt like at the time, seeing how people weren't connected, they weren't, how do I say, um, there was a lot to learn, and there is a lot to learn in small towns. The diversity is very minimal, and when you surround yourself with the same thoughts and the same people, um, people start to believe those things. And and I really expanded my horizons when I moved to Edmonton, and I highly encourage anyone that is stuck in a small town, get the heck out of there. It will do you good. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm
100%.
so off track. You ask a question, and I'm probably talking about a million other things. So
It's
thank you for
perfect.
keeping me on track.
Yeah, no worries there. No worries there. I'm a recovering junior high teacher, so I can bring you back. No worries there. Um, so there's two places specific that I'd like you to talk a little bit about. One is Innisfail, and the other one is the recent stupidity that took place in Grimshaw. So first, let's go to Innisfail. It's pandemic time. Um, Black Lives Matter is going into a very small town, Alberta. And this time there's resistance from the people in the community. How did you feel in that moment as a racialized woman, a woman of color, even going into your sexual orientation? Just how did that feel at that moment while you were there?
It felt different going back into that area, as someone who's done a lot of growing up. When I left Olds, as compared to, going back into the area recently, it felt like night and day. And I even saw a high school teacher there. A lot was bringing me back already, just showing up there. And there was a lot of resistance from the town, a lot of neighboring towns that came out to express their anger and vitriol. If you're familiar with what happened in Innisfil, it got aggressive, and it's unfortunate because when a group of people that are getting together to collectively fight against racism, we just want the thing about Black Lives Matter, if I can just say, I think there's a misunderstanding about what Black Lives Matter means. Black Lives Matter does not mean that Black lives want to be better than white people. Black lives just want to matter equally. We want to exist in this world and feel safe. I don't think that a lot of people are understanding what Black Lives Matter actually means. It's meaning we want equity. We want to be equal. We want to be on the same page. We don't want to be down here, and we don't want to be up here. We just want to be here where y'all are at. I think we just want to eat at the same table. And for 400 years, Black people haven't eaten at the same table. And there's this certain amount of pushback about white privilege from privileged folks that don't understand that being privileged isn't necessarily a bad, it's not a good or a bad thing. It just is. And you have an opportunity to use your privilege. You have an opportunity to use that and raise other voices and raise awareness if you so choose.
Yeah. So I'm a gay man, and growing up, I faced large barriers in growing up and in the first decade of my adulthood. But I also realized that my skin color and my gender has provided me a currency, a currency where doors have not closed in my face, despite whatever blatant or latent homophobia existed that I've encountered. And I can now say that I understand that I am a privileged settler here in Alberta. I also realized that in my past, despite me doing my best, there have been racist moments, or my support of institutions which have shown systemic racism. So I want to do better. I need to do better. How can someone like me be a better ally to our BIPOC, our Black, Indigenous, people of color? How can we be a better ally? I guess what I'm asking is, do you have suggestions for someone like me, how I can step up and help, and at the same time not take over and make it all about myself?
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. I think Black lives really need allies. Black people need people to stand up for them. Ways that people can get involved is, I think first off is following the proper news outlets. Places like, if you're following Fox News, if you are even thinking about watching Rebel News, get that off your feed. Like watch some news that is going to what's the word I'm trying to use here? News that isn't right wing oriented. I don't know where I'm going with this.
Or
right wing oriented.
Yeah, or at least the news that are willing to ask the hard questions, not just because they can stir people up, but be able to say, okay, here's, and I hate to use the words, the black and the white, but here's the gray area here within. What can we learn from it? And those news places are becoming less and less, unfortunately. Um, we see that every day.
Yeah.
Now, some people here who, oh, sorry, go ahead. You were going to tell us.
No, sorry. I realize I'm kind of all over the place, but to get involved, number one is to start following Black Lives Matter posts and shares, and get involved on social media. Support Black lives, support Black excellence, support Black people in your life, raise their voices and show them you support them. No white person has ever had to be scared to leave their house. No white person has ever had to be scared to be pulled over out of fear of being shot because of their skin color. And I think like just getting involved to the at whatever capacity you can get into in your community is important. Show up to protest, get involved in organizations that are making a difference in your community. If you want to have a voice, be a voice. Show up, start showing up.
Yeah. Now, people tuning in and listening to this will be like, Doug, this is supposed to be tales of the LGBTQ plus, but you're talking about Black Lives Matter. And I'll say this right now is that we're a minority group underneath our rainbow. And if you don't step up and help other folks of the majority, other people who are marginalized, you've got nothing. We've got to be able to step up and support everyone. But I do want to move away from Black Lives Matter just a little bit, even though it's a big part of our conversation. But I mentioned before how much I'm in awe of you, and some people here may not know the name Claire Pearen, but people in Edmonton might be going, I know her from somewhere. And I can tell people right now that you will know Claire from every Friday, or nearly every Friday, being at the one of the major intersections on White Avenue, being the counter protester to the street prophets, the people who are up talking about their religion, hate messaging, but you are there dancing, protesting in return, rainbow dress, a rainbow onesie now, I believe, as well. Why is this important to you to be out there week after week, making sure that there's a counter protest to these people?
There was one specific instance standing at the light, waiting for it to turn and listening to them and looking over and seeing a young person who appeared to be in the community. And just watching them absorb what they were saying and the look on their face and exchanging glances with them and thinking, this young person might believe what these people are saying. Like, what if this young person walks away from here and thinks that they're wrong in who they are, and that they shouldn't follow their authentic path. And that scared me. And there's so many people in the world that are forcibly shoved back into the closet because they're scared to come out. And it is street preachers. It is those folks that are preaching Christianity, but don't support the LGBTQ plus community. That, if you think that someone in the community doesn't deserve to exist because of who they love, that's not right with me, and that doesn't sit well. And I will fight for that every day. I will never forget, there was a young person that they skipped school and they came down to protest with me. And I didn't realize at the time how many people were actually listening and watching. And this young person skipped school and left school and came down to protest with me. And just that interaction alone reminded me of why I was out there. Queer kids need, we need direction. There's so many people that are just so lost out there. And if there's someone out there to say, like, you're on the right path and you're doing a good thing, and keep being you, just keep doing your thing, then even if one person was helped, then that makes a difference to me. You know, someone had said, you know, do you even think that you're making a difference out here? Like, look at you, you're just dancing in a dress, and here, you know, are they even, do they even care? And I said, I'm not here for them. I'm here for every queer kid that has to hear this message of hate and vitriol. If they hear one thing from me, if they see one message on one of my signs that reminds them that they're okay, then my job is done. I'm happy to just help one person.
Ah, goosebumps, goosebumps. This is why we love you. There was one moment we were driving. I pick up my husband from work now with COVID taking place, and we were driving down White Ave. It was Friday. We turned around that corner, and I saw the street preachers setting up. And at that moment, I had to roll down the window, and I yelled out to them, "Hey, Claire is coming to get you." And there was that moment that they heard me. I know they heard me. And I got home, logged onto Facebook, and there you were now, soon set up, soon afterwards. So they know you. What is, you brilliantly said that you're there for the queer kids who are there and they see you. What is your relationship with those street preachers? How do you have a relationship with them now, considering you've been protesting for so long?
I mean, there's definitely a relationship, you could say. There's several of them that do it at various times, Dale being the main street preacher. Um, and he is one that I can deal with. It's the nighttime street preachers where it kind of gets a little bit hectic and crazy, and I need to be careful and be wary of my surroundings and things like that. So
Yeah.
and especially with these anti-maskers, when anti-masking first started happening, one did get violent with me when I was protesting on White Ave there, and just I think something to remember when you're protesting is that you have to be aware of all of your surroundings, and you're not going to be not everyone is going to like you. And and that's, you know, that's something that I'm okay with. And, you know, as a young person, I used to be such a people pleaser, and it really feels good to just say, I don't care anymore, you know, like I have to follow what I believe, and where my heart feels goes, and it feels good to do that, you know.
Good. And if you want to swear on this podcast, you can go right ahead. You don't have to find. You can say
That's
whatever the
something I
fuck you
didn't.
want, and that's fine. It's ours. One of the happiest things that I saw, and I have to go back. I would be out there, but with COVID and my husband working at the U of A hospital, I just can't. We just can't risk it. But the one thing that I saw happen last year were all these people who showed up, and they started to dance with you, and the counter protest that was taking place, where you got the support that you needed or you deserve. How did that make you feel when all of these people started showing up?
That had nothing to do with me. That actually was to give a quick short story, a woman on White Avenue that works in the area has seen them many times, and she got upset and took a pair of scissors out of her bra and cut the cord. And
I
someone had made a Facebook post about it, and that post went viral. and they said, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to stop this? And they just decided to, make it's called Love is Louder. And they had um, a protest, and it was a dance protest, and we basically just surrounded the street preachers and everyone showed up at once. It was like the most heartwarming feeling ever, like just seeing a bunch of people that just want to get together and drown out this hate at once was just so heartwarming. And everyone was so good. Everyone wore masks. Everyone kept their distance as much as they could. We had music. Everyone brought their friends. It was just like such a really goosebump, heartwarming moment. So.
And our ML gay, Janice Irwin, was there as well. And
Yes.
When you see someone like Janice, who's part of our community, but member of the Legislative Assembly, she's there. How do you feel with that type of support? Does that just make it easier to go the next week?
Yeah, I think it does. I was just saying again earlier to someone else today how lucky we are to have Janice Irwin, how lucky we are to have, like David Shepherd. Just like Janice Irwin, having her in our corner has been monumental in making change here in Edmonton, I believe. She has I'm not a TikToker. I'm not down with the younger crowd these days, but I see what a difference TikTok is making, and these viral videos that these young folks are doing and bringing awareness and attention to social issues and things that are happening across Canada that, a lot of people wouldn't know about had it not been for these, short stories and, power to TikTokers that are, out there sharing the word and raising awareness. I love that.
It's amazing. You were mentioning a little bit that the street preachers, it hasn't been easy with being around them. Are they just too far gone within their beliefs that there's no crossing over, there's no doors opening with understanding? Is that it, or do you still see some hope?
I don't see hope, unfortunately. I'm a pretty optimistic person, but those street preachers, they fully believe what they're preaching, and they're looking for a following. They're looking for people to believe what they're believing, and I don't believe that there's going to be any sort of street preacher that's going to come forward anytime soon saying, I'm with you and I understand what I was doing is wrong. If you've seen them out there, it's almost like this robotic. They don't even listen to what they're saying. It's just over and over and over on the microphone and on the megaphone, and you just don't, to me, it doesn't make sense. Nothing makes sense that they say. It's confusing. And, there's a fellow that works on White Avenue, and he goes down every now and again and challenges them. He knows his Bible quotes. He knows, the street preacher will say something and he'll come back with something else, and it'll be this awkward silence, but this little bit of back and forth. But I'm not there to debate. It's like talking. It's a lot of wasted energy. If you are trying to debate a street preacher, you're going to waste your energy. I've learned over the time that I've been out there, just do your thing, and your presence alone is making a difference. And as long as you having a sign will stop someone from taking a pamphlet, or and they're really sneaky with those pamphlets too. It almost looks like a coupon or a deal or something that you're getting, and they slyly hand it to you, and you think that you're getting something great. And they're good, those street preachers. They know what they're doing these days.
They're tricky. So
they are.
So, with Black Lives Matters and with you protesting homophobia, where do we go from here? Are we on the right path? Do you see it going?
100%.
Okay.
Yes, we are definitely on the right path. Like I said before, awareness talking about the important issues that we've all been so scared to talk about um, uh, is important. It is crucial having those conversations, and I understand that there's a lot of racism here in Alberta. There's a lot of racism at our own kitchen table, at our own Thanksgiving table. You know, is it difficult to call out your racist uncle? 100%. Should you?
And your homophobic uncle
Yes.
as well. Have to add.
Thank you. Thank you. That, yes.
It all goes
100%.
together.
Yes, of course. Like call them out. And that was a sign that I carried to Grimshaw, and I posted that on the post office. Like here we are in 2020 at the time with a grown man wearing a KKK hood into the post office, and to learn that he was wearing that for a whole month in that town, going and doing his groceries and things like that. It's unacceptable. And in my opinion, if Alberta Humanitarian Initiative did not show up and go down there and raise some awareness and start talking and start asking, Mayor Bob all these questions, it would have went under the rug.
Yeah.
And it's permission for it to continue happening. So stand up when you see something that isn't right. Stand up, or it will keep happening.
Well, and it seems as well, the day that you were protesting, you had a lot of people come up to you to not necessarily apologize for this man wearing the KKK hood, but trying to explain the reasons why, and that he's a good man, and this is just, he's just expressing himself, and those type of things. And we get a lot of that when it comes to racism and homophobia, when we have relatives or friends who will try to make excuses for that family member in order to quiet us, to keep us from talking. With Grimshaw, with what happened recently, we can't really talk into specifics, but what are the next steps? What do we do? What do we do to make sure that this behavior is noticed? And is it time? Is it just education?
Yeah, I think education is number one. I'm talking about, after going to Grimshaw and hearing such a strong response from neighboring communities and from community members expressing their fear of being a racialized person and leaving the house, or the racism that they experience, it is very clear that an anti-racism committee needs to happen, and that's already starting out there. So that is wonderful. In the neighboring areas of Grimshaw, we have, Peace River, which is quite a bit bigger, and all, lots of communities in the area that have lots of racialized folks, and as well as folks under the rainbow as well. As you know, it is incredibly difficult to grow up in a small town in the closet.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about those folks in Grimshaw when I was there. I thought, how many people under the rainbow are sitting in their closets in this town right now, too scared to come out?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
At
the beginning of the podcast, I went through the laundry list of all the things that you've done. For years on Facebook, there'd be posts of you making sandwiches and heading down to areas where our homeless people are in the city, and you pass out food and water and clothes to them. And you did this for years. And then this past year, there was the creation of Water Warriors YEG. YEG being YEG, our call symbol for our Edmonton airport. But this Water Warriors YEG was created, and how did this much needed group come about?
Yeah, so it's a group of the four women that have done kind of individual street team and outreach work on our own for years, and just decided, it would just be so much more conducive if we came together as a group. And that's what we did. And, especially during the pandemic, we realized how, they shut off the water, they shut off all these unhoused folks are having an even more difficult time at trying to gain their resources and things that they really need. So, you know, being able to just, and it's super cool because we were talking at Street Team the other night and just seeing how much it has grown just in this short amount of time. You know, I would show up on the first night with, you know, Rebecca and a couple other people, and we'd have our arms full of, you know, a couple bags of toques and mitts and, you know, a few granola bars and a couple bottles of water. And now we have so many volunteers. We have 3-4 trucks of warm stuff that goes out every time. And we have snacks and water and hot chocolate, and folks that really, really, we look for them and they look for us. You know, there's this woman named Elizabeth, and we helped get her a walker. And the other night she joined us on Street Team. She pushed her walker through the snow and was adamant about coming and helping us. And like, just, I think there's so many stories out there that aren't heard. And
Well,
you know,
I'm going to interrupt real quick. You were looking for a pair of shoes that were huge. Were you able to
yes.
find them? Were you able to find a pair?
Yes, actually someone in the community donated a pair. He bought, it was the anniversary of his dad's passing just recently. And for that, he purchased these shoes. And on top of that, I have a box full, like sitting in front of me, a box full of stuff that he bought, toques and mitts and sock, like backpacks, and just, it's so heartwarming. And he bought this pair of shoes. They haven't arrived yet, but we are going to hand them out when they come. And, you know, I can't imagine being size 17 as like with a roof over your head, let alone a size 17 trying to live unhoused. Like his shoes were coming off of his feet and it was minus 30.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and
you know, and
oh no, I was
sorry,
as we all look at each other, hey, podcast, eh? It's
so
all
Canadian.
But as we produce this today, it's minus 38, minus 40, minus 42 with wind chill right now. And yet your group is going out there basically every night to help and to do this amazing work. Did I read this right? About a month ago, there was a medical emergency and your team actually saved a life?
Yes, I guess that's what happened. Yes. Yeah. So, someone had an overdose in front of us, and was literally turning blue. And we had a naloxone kit, and luckily we had some volunteers that we got some of us into training several months before with the naloxone training, and just kind of jumped into gear. And as a team, brought him back, and I'm just so grateful. We saw him the week after, and it was just so good to see his face and up and walking. And I think there's also, since we're talking about it, a huge misconception of addiction and unhoused people. You know, I don't know if you know, but 180 people per month as of recently are becoming unhoused here in Edmonton, are losing their homes. So we're looking at a very different situation as of this time next year. And it's, you know, a lot of like, here's a, for instance, we talked to a gentleman who this time last year, he had a home, he had a wife, and he had a job. He got in an accident. He wasn't properly paid out by his job. He wasn't able to go back to work. He tried to get the payout. It didn't happen. His wife left him. He started drinking. The accident had, he was taking Percocets because of the accident and oxys. He got addicted to those. And, you know, and I even think at the time, doctors didn't realize how addictive that was. And they were passing it out like candy.
Yeah.
You know, and here we are in an opioid crisis. And something I learned at naloxone training is that a lot of overdoses that happen are not people that are purposely taking fentanyl. It is people that are taking medication and they don't realize they can have this or that or mix it with, like it can happen to anybody. So having an naloxone kit on you, if you're not seeing unhoused people, is not unnormal. Like I highly recommend anyone to get a naloxone kit. You can get it at any safe consumption site or a pharmacy. It takes 15 minutes to learn how to use the kit. You can get proper training, which is highly recommended. And you never know when it might come in handy.
Exactly. And for all the groups that we're talking about, the ones that you're involved with, let's make sure that we include the links with wherever this podcast is posted so that we can make sure that people can reach out and get this information because that's important. Bringing it into the LGBTQ plus, I read a report from a couple of years ago, and in Edmonton as well as Ottawa, it is said that approximately 43 to 46% of the teenagers, the youth on the streets, identify as being part of our community, the LGBTQ community. So if we make up 3 to 10% of the overall population, here we have almost half of our homeless teenagers being part of our group. Is that the statistic that I threw out to you? Is that something that you have been seeing while you were out there?
100%, 100%. We see a lot of racialized folks out there. I'm sure you're familiar with CHU, the organization CHU on Jasper Ave. They are a day program that helps LGBTQ unhoused youth. And stories coming from there. Kids go and they sleep their day away. They sleep there during the day because they need to stay alive at night. They can't sleep out anywhere at night for risk of being hurt. And so many folks out there are LGBTQ on the streets. If someone comes out to their family and they're not accepted, where do they go? They get booted. And a lot of kids know, they're not going to be accepted, so they don't say anything.
Exactly.
It's a roof over your head or being authentically true to yourself for a lot of these kids.
Yeah. You come out when you're safe, and it's part of it. And to go into the political parts, that's what pissed me off so much with our current provincial government, taking out all those safeguards with our gay straight alliances, because at least within these gay straight alliances, the kids could actually feel like they can open up with fear at home. And now we don't have the kids coming into these groups because their parents are going to be informed about their existence within these groups, and which leads to this homelessness, which feeds into addiction, which feeds into all these other issues as well. Okay, so we've spent the first little bit trying to save the world in many ways. Let's change it up a little bit. Claire, what is your go-to karaoke song?
Ooh, good one. I like that. Oh gosh, what is the one? I do like a good Meghan Trainor.
Really?
Yeah, I do. I love to sing Meghan Trainor. What's the one that she does? Your lips are moving. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, that's a good one.
As everybody takes out their Shazam to find it later on.
Yes. Oh gosh, I bet after pandemic and stuff, we're all just missing public anything.
Yeah, I will go.
Even if the karaoke was bad, I miss it now.
Yes, exactly. And just for people to know, Claire used to run tons of karaoke shows within the city of Edmonton. So she is a karaoke queen as a host. My next question.
At one point we did, oh, sorry.
It just
reminded me of back at Hooligans years ago, we did Bring Your Own Queer. And we had so many community members in that bar that a lot of people mistook it for a a community bar, which is really great.
So yeah, a lot of people thought Hooligans was an LGBTQ bar. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Which is not a bad thing at all, because we need our
that,
space. And
that's right.
just for people listening at home, we're having upcoming podcasts talking about queer space in our bars and pubs and why it's so important. Now, Claire, before the pandemic, you were spinning tunes at for the ladies dancing at a gentleman club. So, what
Yes.
is a go-to song that you know just made the women happy to do their thing?
Oh, here's one. I believe she's in the community. Her name is Meg Myers, and the song is called Desire.
Okay.
It's very, very good. It's a good one. I
Okay.
mean, there's lots of songs that are, get the energy and vibe flowing. But I mean, I think that's each to their own, right? Like,
Exactly. We find our grooves and ways.
that's right. That's right.
Favorite musician that you have ever worked with or have had to pick up from the airport as well as backstage?
Oh, good. Oh, that's such a favorite is such a hard term. I really, really liked working with Sean Desmond.
Really?
Um, yeah, yeah.
Sean doesn't have the greatest public feedback at times.
Yeah, so that was like I worked with him on his just before his 17th birthday.
Oh, really?
So
Okay.
yeah, I that was a while ago. And I remember saying to him, I said, you are never going to perform at a venue like this ever again.
Yeah.
Because it was at the Winsphere, and I just thought we were driving through this crowd of crazy girls screaming, and I thought it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. And
That's
but
amazing.
yeah, no, that was it was a while ago. So when he was just 17ish. So
Before he made it big. Um,
yeah, but I'm sorry. I keep getting distracted, and I heard favorite, but I really liked working with Paul McCartney.
okay.
He had this I really like how he involved everyone that was working at some capacity in his day at some point. Like, you felt recognized, which at his level is really difficult to do. So yeah, great person.
So how do you find yourself working for Metallica in Edmonton, and then all of a sudden finding yourself being asked by them to join them on the road? How does that happen?
Yeah, that was a heck of a story. I didn't I applied for a gig, and originally it was to stuff swag bags because I wanted a free concert ticket. And a friend that had her foot in the door and said, apply for this job. Um, it was a running position, but I knew I wasn't going to be able to lift anything because of my back. And I said, I don't think I could do that. Apply anyways, apply anyways. So I applied. I went for the interview. I started that night, and he said, great, show up at Rexall. I didn't know what I was getting into. I didn't know what was happening. I showed up, and he basically told me what I was going to do. I was going off the seat of my pants, and every task he would give me a new one. He said, okay, you're done this now. You go take a break and you go eat. So I look around, and there's all these tables full of people and sitting, eating behind backstage. And so I look for the one seat, and I go and sit at this table, and all these guys are shoveling food into their mouth wearing black. And I walk up and I'm like, hi, I'm Claire. And sit down and, talk their ears off. And, pretty much by the end, I remember the one guy saying, people just come in here and do their jobs. He's like, and you didn't, but I'm glad. And I remembered like being taken aback thinking, oh my gosh, Claire, like you're too much right now. Like this has been a fear of my whole life. You're too much. But like that was a moment that it paid off because somehow they ended up letting go a bunch of their travel people that were going to be traveling with them that night. And that they just asked, would you like to come to Vancouver? We're going to be filming a movie there, and we're going to be there for 2 weeks. And would you like to come? Yes, I would.
And Claire joins the Metallica.
Oh, it was so cool.
So
The
what did your
coolest.
mom say when you said you were joining a rock and roll band or a metal band?
And she wasn't surprised.
Yeah, nobody was surprised. It was like, oh, okay, yeah, of course. So for years, I resisted the temptation for years. But then I finally bought the largest pail of Claire's Munchie Mix that you sell. And I bought one for the husband as well. And no word of a lie, I could not stop my hand movement from the pail to my mouth and back again. I couldn't stop. So when did you decide to market this, mix it, and make just another job for you? How did this come about for yourself?
Yeah, that came about in Olds, actually. I was getting through college. I was 19, and I just thought, it was a friend's mom that made it, and I liked it, and so I started making it myself. And friends started asking, oh, make some for me, and how about I buy you the ingredients this time so you don't have to spend it. And then someone said, why do you just sell it? You make it enough. And so I made a sign and bristle board, and I went down to Midnight Madness and set up a table, and so started selling there. And it's crazy, almost 15 years later, some of my biggest customers are still from Olds.
Yeah, absolutely, and understandable. I am a fat man and I have cravings, and one of those cravings is Claire's Munchie Mix. Um,
It is good.
oh, it's damn good. And and part of me before was like, oh yeah, 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 and you support the community and those type of things, but oh my gosh. So we've been chatting for a while and we've gone through it and we've saved the world and all those things. Going back to Lacombe and Olds, to that young girl who has recognized that she's biracial, adopted her brother, darker skinned than her. You're overprotective, protecting him. You're realizing that your mom's friends are cute. You're realizing that there's something could be up with that. The Claire of today, what would you tell that little girl?
I would tell her to not worry so much. Everything will work out as it should. And don't stress out so much. I think a lot of us tend to overthink everything. Um, overthinkers know what I mean. But I think just relaxing a little bit more and just knowing that everything is going to work out as it should. And if it doesn't, you're not there yet.
And that's okay.
Yeah,
That's
it
okay.
is. And that's another thing, is that it's okay.
Yeah.
That is okay. Everything is okay. How it evolves, how it happens. If it doesn't work out, it's still okay.
Yeah, absolutely. We have one life to live, and it's up to us to write the greatest story that has never been put down on a piece of paper before, and that's our lives. When we're able to again, you are going to get the biggest and gentlest bear hug from me, as always.
Mhm.
You are so loved, Claire, and I'm excited to see the path that you're on and the woman that you've become. You're doing good, kid. Real good.
Thank you so much.
Um, Thank you for being my guest today here on Tales of the LGBTQ. And to everyone listening, on behalf of Claire, thank you for tuning in and listening to our podcast episode. Once again, Tales of the LGBTQ+. Until next time, I'm Douglas Parsons, telling you to be good and to remember to text when you get home. Bye for now.